Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. This is a special edition. Not going to be sponsored by anybody. I'm not going to go through the usual ads about, hey, I'd love you guys to attend the FTO Expo in Orlando, which I do want you to attend, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Just going to share a little story that somebody reminded me that I had promised to share. If you guys remember, I've shared on past episodes, when I first started working at Rack's Restaurants, there were a couple of different instances that had me sitting in front of a manager and the manager telling me that they couldn't believe that a human being could move as slowly as I did and not be on drugs. There were a couple of different instances where that happened, and I should have recognized that I'm not as good as I thought I was. But let me tell you the very beginning of that story and how we as humans sometimes ignore the signs when they're right in front of us. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago about a baseball game that I played when I was 11 years old. I was 5'11" as an 11-year-old, so I was quite tall. I was a pitcher, and I was facing the most prolific home run hitter in our league. And of course, I was able to get him out, which was awesome for me. Wasn't a big deal. It's not like I struck him out or anything, but I did get him out. He didn't hit a home run against me, so that was good. But later on that season, we're in the championship game. Now, the week leading up to the championship game was interesting. Our particular league tried really, really hard to get all the games done by July 4th because they knew that families would be leaving and taking the kids on vacation. So they wanted to have the league over with so it would be kind of a balanced team amongst all the different players, rather than having one team that has all of its best players gone because their families went on vacation. So it was very important to our league that we were done by the weekend of 4th of July. Well, leading up to the championships, of course, they had a playoff. So all of the teams that were in the league got to play off against each other. And it was, if you win, you advance. If you lose, you're done for the season. But we advanced. And if you remember, I told you that our league had a rule that any pitcher, number one, they had to be under 12 years old. They could not be a 12-year-old. So I was 11, so I was able to pitch. But they also could only pitch a total of 6 innings a week. So the week leading up to the championship, there was a lot of rain, and we had a couple of rainouts. So we ended up playing a doubleheader on Saturday. That would be the absolute last day that we could play, because if the games didn't complete by Saturday, the league was over and people would be on vacations. So Saturday we had a morning game. We'd never played a doubleheader because remember, we're all very young, so we've never played a doubleheader. And the rules were still going to apply. I could only pitch a total of 6 innings. I could pitch 3 in the morning, 3 in the evening, or I could pitch all 6 in either game, but I could not pitch more than 6 total innings. So if a game went into extra innings and I'd already pitched my 6, I was going to be pulled out. So the coach was real careful. He had me pitch in the first game just to make sure that we got to the second game. So I pitched the first 3 innings of it, and then he was going to let me have rest of the day off until we started the championship game, of course, depending upon if we won that first game, which we did. We won it pretty handily. It wasn't even close. I got my 3 innings in. My team was ahead, so technically I got the win on that particular game. So I was going to start the championship game. I only had 3 innings to pitch, and the coach had a couple of different scenarios in mind. He thought about having me play the outfield 1 or 2 innings and then come back in to pitch if they needed. So he was going to have me play all 6 innings, but maybe not all 6 as the pitcher, because he couldn't. He could only do me 3 innings as a pitcher. So the first inning comes up, and this is against a team that I knew the coach. The only team in the whole league that I knew the coach, because he worked with my mom at a hatchery. My mom was in charge of the accounting department there, and he did something as far as handling the chickens. I don't really know what he did, but I know that he worked at Hinton Hatchery like my mom did. So the first inning, 3 up, 3 down, both sides, no score. Coach pulls me out. He wants me to save myself, he said, for later innings. So he has me play in the outfield. And of course, I have told you guys I was not a real good fielder, so I was hoping nothing would get hit to me in the outfield. And as luck would have it, nothing did get hit to me. Second and third inning go by, and each of us score, I believe, 1 or 2 runs. It was super, super close game. So the coach is going to put me in for the last 2 innings of the game. And it's, again, a super close game. I was able to get the other team out in the 5th inning, no problem. So that leads us into the 6th inning. And I believe they were ahead by 1 run. And we were the visiting team, which meant we had to bat first. So we had to tie the game. Otherwise, I wouldn't be pitching anymore, and that would be the end of the game. So I get up to bat, and the very first pitch they throw at me is super inside. And I mean, it is so far inside that I can't dodge it. And it hits me. And it hits me right below the rib cage on my left side. And it was scary because I'd never been hit by a pitch before. So I'm kind of laying there on the ground. My dad jumps up out of the stands. He's ready to come on the field, which my dad was not emotional. So to see him jump out of the stands made me more panicked than I was because of the pain of getting hit with a baseball. It's like, oh crap, I must be in really bad shape, but Dad's jumping up. So after 2-3 minutes, they figure out that I'm okay, no broken ribs. They send me down to first base. And the first base coach tells me, as soon as the ball gets hit, you got to run. We've got to score. Okay, coach, I'll do it. So the ball gets hit and I run. Of course, it's foul. Ball gets hit again, it's foul, but I'm running. The third strike, the player strikes out. So now we have 1 out. I'm on first base and I'm the tying run. Second batter gets up. He's our most prolific home run hitter. He'd hit several home runs that year. And I was thinking he's going to hit a home run. We're going to be ahead and I'll save it by, putting 3 out, 3 down in the last inning. Well, he gets up, he strikes out. So now it's down to the last out. And the coach says, you have got to run no matter what. All right, I'm going to run. The batter hits it and it goes into the outfield and it's going to land safely. So I know that I can run at least to second, maybe even to third. So the outfielder bobbles the ball. So the third base coach is telling me just round the base and head on into home. Run as hard as you can. So he's waving me into home. So I'm running into home. The ball gets thrown and I see the catcher catch it when I'm just getting ready to start my slide. And I'm thinking I'm going to be out. There's no way in the world that I'm going to be safe. And that's going to be it. We're going to lose. Somehow the catcher misses me. Now I'm 5'11". I don't know how he missed me, but he did. And I'm safe. Game's tied. So that means I get a pitch. So the next batter gets up. He goes out. It's the end of that inning. So it's up to me to hold the other team. The first batter that gets up hits a line drive right back at me. And it's another one of those, I'm going to defend myself kind of things. But this time I was a little bit more aware than when Randy hit the line drive at my head. This one I caught. Next 2 batters, I get out, no problem. Score's tied going into extra innings, except Bill can't pitch anymore. I can play in the outfield, but I can't pitch. So our team goes 3 up, 3 down. The coach says, I'm going to pull you out of the game because I want to put a better fielder. And he didn't say it quite that abruptly, but that's what he wanted. He wanted a better fielder because we had to prevent them from scoring, otherwise the game's over. Well, as luck would have it, they get up and they hit 2 or 3 hits because we don't have, in my mind, the best pitcher, which was me, was not pitching. So they ended up winning the game by 1 run. I was heartbroken. I'd never lost a game. Technically, that wasn't my loss. It was the other pitcher that relieved me, but we hadn't lost. And we lost the most important game of the season, the championship game. So I was heartbroken. The coach is saying, we'll take everybody out for snow cones and we'll go over to the concession stand and all snow cones are on me. And the tradition had been all the rest of the season, we go for milkshakes when we win. So already we're getting that. Here's your consolation prize. Here's a snow cone. It costs, 50 cents. We're not going to splurge on the milkshake. So I was just heartbroken. Didn't go to the concession stand. Just told Dad, let's just go home. And, I'm crying, little 11-year-old crying. The moral of that story, I didn't learn why I was able to be beaten because I had every other game I'd played up until that point, we had won handily. And I was able to get the other team out pretty easily. Remember I told you the coach worked with my mom at Hinton Hatchery. My mom actually worked at Valley Farms and they were in the same building. The hatchery, of course, providing the eggs for Valley Farms to sell as dozens of eggs and so on. So we're at a family picnic for the company. So Hinton Hatchery and Valley Farms are all together and they're playing horseshoes and everybody's brought food and they had food catered in. Big event. And I see George, who was the coach of the other team. And I said, George, how you doing? He says, no hard feelings about the game. We did what we had to do. And I'm like, you just barely won. It wasn't like y'all killed us or anything. He says, well, I want to tell you what we did to be able to play against you. So my ego's getting real inflated now because they had to do something special to play against me. He says, you pitch so slowly that the ball curves naturally. And none of us coaches can believe the ball doesn't bounce before it gets to home plate. Now, my 11-year-old ego was totally crushed. I throw what I thought was a blazingly fast fastball, and George is saying, no, you throw the slowest ball humanly possible without it bouncing across home plate. Now, that lesson should have stuck with me when I turned 18 and start working at Rax, and they're telling me, you're so slow, we think you're on drugs. I had 7 years to figure out how to get better and how to get faster and to change my self-perception that I know how to do everything perfectly, and I didn't. So when someone gives you that positive feedback, or may even be negative feedback, pay attention to it and see how you can apply it to your work life, your social life, your family life, whatever life it is that needs that application brought to. I was slow. As an 11-year-old who thought I had just the fastest fastball possible, did not. Go to work at Rax Restaurants, thought I was the quickest sandwich maker they ever had. Was not. But I worked to become that once it finally set into me that my perception of my abilities is not the reality for the rest of the world. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding our podcast informative and helpful, please subscribe And if you'd really like to support us, there'll be a link in the description to make that happen. Every little bit does help keep us going. Until next time, you guys have a profitable week.